Hello and welcome. My name is Rob, aka Lantern Noir, and I have bellied up to the bar for a beverage and banter with my amazing friend.
Graybeard of Graybeard Tavern.
Awesome. And I think I have some local color happening. So while I'm checking that, how has your week been?
Woohoo. Check the color. Okay, my week was pretty good. We had some we had a great Grognard Saturday night game with the with the with the old guys. They had basically kidnapped the nice version of Jeff Bezos. Um, and they kidnapped him to make sure that he was this little space mutant that they had found, to make sure that she was his daughter. She wasn't just some experiment or whatnot. And there, to prove that he actually loved her and stuff, there was a grenade involved. It was crazy. And yeah, oh yeah, it was it's not a stream game, it's just a bunch of old grognards, so it doesn't have to have all the trigger warning kind of stuff. And it was intense. It can be a very beer and pretzels game, and it can be really big and hardcore and
And grenades can be
stuff.
involved.
And grenades can be involved.
Because
In the
that's
end, it was not a real grenade, it was a stun grenade. So but yeah, no, that was the big highlight there. I did so we did Myth on Sunday, and so we got to the end of the first story. There's several. I mean, there's pretty much just procedurally generated stories forever, but the first real story of the game, we got to the end. We fought our way through the BB, the big bad evil guy. One party member standing. They had pitched a poison grenade earlier. More
back to grenades
grenades
again.
Yeah, we're back. And they had pitched a poison grenade earlier. They had slunk into the shadows, all Assassin's Creed style. They had their hand crossbow, and they fired the last shot, killed the BBGE. Oh my God, it was amazing. The credits started to roll for the first chapter of the book, and the game crashed. It wasn't Wildermyth's fault. It was Microsoft's fault. It came up with oh, this is your reminder later that you wanted to choose some apps and finish your setup, the new downloaded patch of the thing. And oh my God, I just wanted to scream.
But
So
but you caught the epic finale
mm,
on channel, so you can go back and highlight it. So you
yeah.
you have you have it.
Well, so what I did was, when I got through all the nightmare finding out, because I told everyone, I said, okay, peeps, I'll let you know how it turned out on Twitter and whatnot. So I went back in, and when I loaded back in, it always asks you, would you like to continue your story? And I said yes. And it started right at the beginning of the big bad boss fight. So we get to fight the boss fight again, which is stressful and horrible, but we know what we're in for. So it's almost like uh, uh, that Tom Cruise movie,
Edge of
World of
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Edge of Tomorrow.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
good movie.
Yeah. So that's we're gonna Edge of Tomorrow it, no, don't go over there, JD lady. What are you thinking? Protect the mystic at all cost.
Yeah. Well, and I got caught by that because I finished Solasta today. Speaking of finishing games, I
Ooh.
finished the official campaign that publishes with Solasta the Crown of the Magister campaign. And I will not spoil the ending. I will just say
Mm.
I made the mistake of thinking, oh, this is the last fight. I'm going to burn all my spell slots, all my potions, all my scrolls, all the crap I've been lugging around for
Mm-hmm.
for 10 levels. It's
Mm.
all going in. And then it's like, cutscene, yes, we beat it, we're done. Wait, what? Really? I have no. Okay.
begin the Terminator music. Dun 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 dun
Okay.
dun.
Okay.
Dun.
We can. And the nice thing is they was very forgiving because I squeaked by that fight with like one person still, like two people were standing, two were dead or dying. They were making death saves, and then that ended, and then we got to the credits. I'm like, okay, I can handle that. That's a good one. I feel bad because I can think of like at the game table.
Yeah.
I know if I'm planning this encounter, and I know it's like, okay, by the way, guys, you're really burning a lot of spell slots here. Are you sure you want to do that? Like, I don't want to give away the whole story, but I'm just like, there's still a lot that can happen in the universe. Oh no, wait, man, this is the boss fight. We're done after this.
Yeah.
Okay. I tried. Which is actually from our email section. We're going to talk about that whole how to communicate with players when you want them to stop doing something.
All right.
A very particular something. So yeah, that'll be a fun one to go after. But yeah, I mean, I've got some other updates from the week. The biggest one I'll share is I did kill a character in Curse of Strahd Sunday night.
Oh.
He died in a death trap.
And
And in hindsight, I probably could have given him one more deck save to get out of it, but it was too fun to kill him because he had previously sworn an oath to protect Irina unto death. A revenant had come early in the game and said, I'm here to claim the devil spawn before she can give comfort to Strahd von Zarovich. So send her out so I can kill her and be on your way. And they went, no. He's like, well, no, because if she becomes a vampire, he'll have comfort. We can't let him have comfort. We need to kill her. And this guy's character said, no, I'll protect her. I'll make sure nothing bad happens to her. And said, do you so swear? I so swear. Do you so swear unto your death? I so swear. Do you swear beyond your death? I swear beyond my death. And I'm like, well, that's not going to come back and haunt you later. And so the massive granite block rose off of where his crushed body was. And he picked himself up and he straightened his bowler and said, okay, let's go find Irina. I have to protect her. So he's no longer a human fighter barbarian. He is now a reborn fighter barbarian. Which I looked at it. I'm like, talk about power creep in D&D. There are no downsides to being reborn other than you've been dead.
You might lose a little bit for your background stuff might switch out a little bit because I Wings allowed me to do that in the Strahd campaign. I died fighting a Draco Lich.
Oh, I'll do it.
So I went down with the ship and I did the whole Leonardo DiCaprio scene where I was sinking into the icy water and then she let me come back for another one shot for vengeance's sake, and I switched my halfling up to become an unborn. So yeah, I do like that kind of thing. Like I said, that's how I saved my youngest daughter. She had died in our home campaign, and I was like, oh no, Faye, goodly Faye, the good fairy comes and says, well, if you'll take a level in Warlock and help me out and stuff, I'll save you. And so she took that, and so she was able to
There's a lot of really clever ways to get around character death. Although it does seem to be reborn plus Ravenloft equals good times, because that's two we've mentioned in 10 minutes. About characters dying in Ravenloft, which is my catch-all for the Curse of Strahd, Domain of Dread, Barovian games. And the solution has been, now you're reborn.
Right.
Which I don't know what's going to happen because I'm in the process of commissioning character art for that group. And a part of me is like, well, no, now we need to make the Dagon be undeady. But then I'm also like, but that's kind of a plot twist. Like, I think the art probably shouldn't.
Right.
Plus, who knows? Maybe he'll get better.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty slick too. The whole I want to be a real boy, and
It makes for fun campaigns. The other fun part that came out of the game, before we get into our week's topic, is that one of the players said, well, when this campaign's over, if we make new characters and start a new campaign, like every couple of months, we should do like a very special episode and take these ones back out again. And like, maybe it happened like before we all got into Ravenloft, but like sometime before, but just so I can put this character on for a night.
Yep. Yeah,
like, that's a good gamer.
Yeah. Well, and two, that was when we finished Waterdeep. I mean, we went to Gen Con and cosplayed a day as our Waterdeep characters and stuff. We loved those characters, and Indoor was nice enough to bring us back. God, I think we had 3 adventures after the whole Waterdeep thing had done, that we had done other adventures that, we brought those characters back for, a very special episode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and especially they will have spent over a year weekly playing in this campaign by the time we wrap it up.
Yeah.
If things continue on the pace they're on. We'll see how fast. I mean, they're in the castle now, so who knows? Maybe they'll finish it in 2 weeks, but I think we're going to hit about the 1 year mark before it's like, okay, you did it. Which I think is a pretty good campaign.
Yeah.
Chef.
Yeah. Well, and like we talked when we talked campaigns, I mean, most campaigns, if you last 6 to 10 sessions, you're like, oh, we made it. We made it 6 to 10 sessions, Yep. Streaming's a little different, but like in a home campaign, if you make it 6 to 10, so like 2 to 3 months of playing once a week, you're doing pretty good.
And just to riff on that for a second, I think streaming does add a layer of accountability, because you're not just, if you say, oh, I can't play this week, you're not just saying no to the table, you're saying no to the table and all of the regular attendees. And I'm committed. I will always have a stream on a night I'm scheduled to. So even if my players are like, oh no, none of us can make it, well, I still got to put content up. Yeah. So I'll still do something. So maybe there's a little bit of that, like just that little bit extra.
Right.
That's just a little more than like back in the old days when we really did just rely on the whole, I can't let the group down and miss a session. But
back in the 90s, that was a thing where, I had a friend who was like, no, it should be on your calendar that this is D&D day. It's like a thing. It's just like I'm going on vacation. I have to work. All that, anything else you would put on that calendar, that's what D&D is. It's and it was his thing. And I'm like, nice, good level of commitment. And I mean, I was the DM, so I had to be there. So
there was no waving off.
Exactly.
Okay. So you had pitched, we realized today that we didn't really pre-plan a topic, but I think you stumbled onto one. You mentioned home brewing and hodgepodging. I'm going to let you go first with what you're thinking about is what we're going to riff on for the next hour, call it 48 to 49 minutes.
So hodgepodging, that's just, all the other kind of little D&D things that, come with it. That's the potpourri of D&D. But I've been doing a lot of thinking about homebrew because the first book of my Grognard campaign is coming to an end, and I want to step away from it for a bit, from that game system and things. And I've been wanting for years to do a mercenary company game, like I don't know, D&D, whatever we're going to use for it. I think that, so there's this book series from the 80s called The Black Company. And it's a fantasy world, but it's a mercenary company in a fantasy world. And it's dated. It's very dated. So anybody who's taking this as a recommendation and runs out and gets it, they, just know what you're getting into. And then there's a series of called Sharp's Rifles, and that also has that sort of mercenary company kind of feel, but it's, you know, the British in India, and again, very dated. But I really wanted to play that. Well, how to play that and what system to use, and so that's what I've been going through. So I've been hodgepodging, pulling bits and pieces together to try to come up with a way to play that online with using D&D. So it's been a lot of picking and choosing and creating new stuff, so for just to make that campaign happen.
Yeah, that's and Van Gelty, welcome aboard. Indeed, we are homemaking your own wine and beer is vastly impressive. I briefly had a stint with trying to brew my own beer, and it did not take. Mostly because I didn't I had one good batch, and then I think I failed to clean everything, and that was the end of my brewing days. So that came and that went, and that was where that was.
Mm.
But yeah, the title of the stream is home brewing plot beer. But it sounds like you're taking this to like a whole new level of homebrew. You're up to home brewing mechanics and rules and
Yeah.
trying to make things that are not D&D fit the D&D fit, which I think it's weird because I would love to play games like, you know, something set in as much as there's some political issues with it, but things like the 19th century has some really neat tech levels and interesting expectations. I have a friend who's looking to run a game that's set. It's a Regency era game, so it's a lot of social deduction, and social intrigue. So, and it's like, well, what game mechanics do we use?
Yeah.
And D&D, for all of its foibles, is approachable. It's ubiquitous, and if you get enough homebrew content on D&D Beyond, it's automated.
Right, that's true too. That is true. And I see, and that's part of the thing that because it would be more of a well, I'm still in the making decisions, but there is a good supplement out there called it's basically D&D 5e, but it's Darkest Dungeon for 5e, and it's got you know, all sets of rules to make D&D very gritty and realistic and stuff, and like weapon quality, and weapons can break. You know, you can run out of ammo. It really does take that, oh god, we didn't eat, you know, and you're dying of thirst and you're dying of hunger, and it like I said, it's got a lot of good gritty rules that I've been kind of pulling from that. And then I've looked at like 5 or 6 different mass combat rules, so that, you know, as their mercenary company grows, they're not just, you know, the dirty half dozen. It's you know, it can get bigger and bigger, and they can go into battles.
Yeah, and they start taking command of companies and small regiments.
Yep. Stuff. So.
Yeah, and that's one that opens up the door when you talk about that idea of basically writing your own game mechanics.
Yep.
Is what you're doing. Most of my homebrewing is geared around the fact that I'm just profoundly lazy. and Darkest Dungeons was a fun game, but it's a little tediously difficult. You know, if you're into that kind of challenge, and I remember my first roguelike, I wasn't ready for the fact that like I had the entire ship fail. It was the Firefly. It wasn't Firefly. It was FTL.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do I keep playing this game? And an hour and a half later, all my guys are dead. Like, why? And then I started reading up online. I'm like, oh, I'm only supposed to play for like an hour and a half, and then my game's supposed to be over.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that day comes where you get home and you're like, oh. But until then, yes, it's a grind, and it's just so RNG based, where oh god, dead. Bad roll, dead. Okay, start again.
Yeah, that's not always my thing. But no, I'm really lazy when it comes to reading lore books. And like I cut my teeth on Dungeons and Dragons back in the day when, really, if you think back to the basic book and you think back to the advanced Dungeons and Dragons books, 90% of them were mechanics based.
Yeah.
And there was no lore. You made it up as you went along.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started publishing books, which I never got because I didn't need them to play. I had my modules and I had my rule books. So I didn't need the World of Greyhawk or the Greyhawk Adventures book.
Yep.
I didn't need it because there weren't any adventures in it.
Yeah.
It was cities and gods and towns and maps and
here's the population and the military forces and the things of every county in the world.
Yeah. And it was, and you know, how the elves got to be the elves and how the dwarves got to be the dwarves. And the only lore I knew well enough to say, I'm going to run a game in a set system was Dragonlance, which we talked about a few weeks ago, where I'd read all the books. So I knew the lore because I'd read the prose.
Yeah.
But I'm still not even entirely sure who Elminster is. Like, I know he's a big effing deal. I get that.
Right.
He slept with a bunch of people, I guess. Maybe.
And maybe he's a dragon.
Maybe.
But
and I appreciate the tip, by the way, that if I'm lazy, wine is better to make than beer. I'm down with that.
Yeah, and so homebrew world, making your homebrew world, is definitely a place where a lot of new DMs. I always say, if that's what you're happy doing, do it. If you're a new DM just starting out, I would take a page from Dungeon World, and now even D&D says it. Just make a town, you know, or a city, or, you know, a county and start there, and then leave your spaces on the map and build out as your adventures come to you. But if you are the kind of DM who is kind of a writer, you know, more than a gamer or an actor or whatever, then I can see, log in, get yourself a World Anvil account, and just start.
Now what? Okay.
In the
that
third
called?
age.
World Anvil.
I think it's called World Anvil. Yeah, and it's you know, you can put your maps in there. It's a web page design kind of thing. It's browser based, so that you can then send the link out and all your players can then see the lore you want them to see, and you can click boxes and make it so there's lore they can't see, and that way it helps you organize, and it's for writers and game masters and stuff. It's a good tool. But like I'm saying, if that's your shtick and you love doing that, go for it. World build, homebrew, till, you know, because that's all the game settings are. They're, you know, Greyhawk is just Gaiax and Friends' homebrew world for D&D. You know, Dragonlance was Hickman's and Weiss's homebrew world.
Well, and the neat thing, the advantage to doing the big World Anvil side of things is you set up, if you're into that, you then set up room to more easily get into big epic things, because you've laid out the politics where it's like, okay, this is why this kingdom is doing this, and the players can start to see, oh, we might end up being part of that war, or we might be tasked to undermine this other thing. But I firmly agree that the best part about, if you don't know a world well, is start where the adventurers are, define enough that they can do what they're going to do, and then grow as you go. Plus, the beauty of telling people that you have a homebrew world is that at no point can anybody say, wait, dwarves don't do that. Because if they try to say that, you just turn around and say, well, in this world they do. That's your out. Nobody can say, well, I thought halflings were supposed to all be, pickpockets. Well, in my world, they're all priests.
Yep. and the opposite of that is also true if you have it, because you can then go to the elven player, because you've had say there's a tiefling player, and you're like, I don't know, I have no idea what I'm going to do with the tieflings. What are the tieflings like? Where do they come from? And the player then gets some agency, because then they tell you where it is, and you go to your world Anvil account and go tieflings. This is what they're from and how they came about.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
You open so many doors when you approach that to protect yourself, and I think that might be part of why I've never deeply invested in a world much beyond what I needed for the published module I was running.
Yeah.
Because I always liked the flexibility of going, okay, the plot requires this. So I'm going to put this in the world. And if everyone goes, oh, you can't put that in there, it's like, well, why not? It's my world.
Right. Yeah.
Now, for the game I've got coming up after my next Wednesday night game, not the one that's currently running, but then the one that's starting on Kickstarter this week.
Yeah.
I might have to start using World Anvil a little bit, because it's got some top level politics planned in the story arcs.
Yeah.
Where I'll just keep taking really good notes in my Google Drive.
And the thing is too is again, like I said, with the World Anvil, you can share what you want of it, you can keep what you want of it, you can make connections between characters, and you can browser search. So you're like, what did I call that character? Lambda Lily,
Yep. Yep. I hear you.
Search your own notes.
I hear you on that. So, but that's, and that can be, again, it's what's fun. When Jenny and I were running our, the game we co-DM'd, we world built ourselves. We designed the continent ourselves. I actually had a wonderful conversation with a geologist from the University of Michigan that confirmed that rivers can reverse course.
Nice.
I was having a hard time with something, and I'm like, well, what if this happened? And therefore, the reason the river does this here is its course has been reversed, and this has happened. And I'm like, I don't know, do rivers do that? And she said, I don't know. I don't do rivers do that. I said, well, it's a Thursday afternoon. Beep, 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 beep. Hi, you're professor of geology. Yeah, I am. I run D&D. Can I ask you a couple of quick questions about some world building I'm doing? And the guy's like, sure. What do you need? I guess. And I said, well, I'm just trying to figure out, can rivers change course? He goes, absolutely they can. And I got like a free 10-minute mini lecture on conditions by which rivers flip over.
I happen to write my dissertation on.
Had I been that lucky. But it's one of those. Now, that said, when I was writing, I was also trying to make sure I had enough biodiversity to maintain a closed population.
Right.
No biologist was cool with that question. Like, nobody wanted to give me a number of people I should put in my arc to be sure there was enough diversity of the population to ensure that we wouldn't have weird genetic drift. Right. Which could also be, this might be a little hotter of a topic than they want to just casually answer to a proto-writer over the phone.
Am I being recorded? Is this one of those states where you can record phone calls without telling someone?
Pro tip, Michigan is a two-party consent state.
Well, good.
Just so you know.
You end up with the Eloy and the Murlocs, and
So, but yeah, there's so much room though when you get playing around with it. Have you done a lot of homebrewing of their world? What things jumped out at you as some fun things you've? Because here's the thing, to prep you for the question, when you homebrew, you create surprises. Because you get that player that reads the whole book through, and when the party comes across a group of dwarves for the first time, he goes, I know how dwarves work. I've read the book. And you can go, oh, really now? One
of my absolute favorite bits along those lines, it wasn't even me, it's not even my bit. Muddy Muddy was running an adventure, and this dwarf showed up, and he had an animal, like a hog's head or something on it, on his shield. And one of the players was like, he's not really a dwarf. Dwarves never have, animals on their shields. Get him, kind of thing. and Muddy was like, what the beep are you talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Of course, some, dwarf will have a bear or a badger or, a beholder on his shield. What? But this player totally was like, no, this is the way it is. X on dwarves, they only have tools, hammers, gold, that kind of thing. So yes, that is one of my favorite homebrew things, where Muddy then was like, oh, that's the way it's gonna be, huh? All right. Dwarves definitely use animals on their shields in my world.
Nice.
One of the things that my long running homebrew world has, there's and it came from multiple campaigns that I ran. There's these 9 boxes, these 9 chaos boxes, and each one is a 3-lock box. It has three keys to open these boxes, and they release or capture chaos. And so when the world gets too nice, these boxes call out to individuals to come and open the box, and then it's a series of Pandora's boxes that people then try to hide or vault or whatnot. And so as the world, it was interesting because I was running an evil campaign, and the evil players, their job was to open these boxes and bring chaos to the world, and we'll be the most powerful evil people, blah, blah, blah. And
such optimism.
Yeah. So that was their shtick. And we ran, we were into the high teens levels with that campaign. We ran it for years. But yeah, and so the chaos boxes have always been part of my world, and they're always my cataclysm event is, you open the boxes. But the boxes also go the other way too. So if the world is evil, they'll call out because they're chaos. They don't want everything to be one way, so they'll call to heroes to open the box, and then the box opens, and it's opens a gateway to the Feywild, and pixies and centaurs ride forth to help save the place. So that's one of my big themes that I've had since the 90s. That's been one of those things in my homebrew world.
But it's a good MacGuffin. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a really solid, like, well, what do we need? We need the thing. Mm-hmm. Why do we need it? Because it's needed. Like, that is like a really solid, we need the thing.
Right.
Which is really hard to pull off sometimes, because sometimes you're like, what's the MacGuffin gonna be?
Right.
What are we gonna do? I surprised, and since I don't think anyone from the current game is on right now, I surprised the party that just went through Valley of Plenty the first time I ran it, because they were going after a magic wand that was stored inside the altar of the chapel in the town. It was an ancient relic of, I want to say it was Saint Anastasia was the name of the saint that was tied to it. And so they got there, and the pastoress said, fine, you can have the relic. I don't want to see you taking it. And they broke open the altar, and this shriveled up, petrified finger falls out. And they're like, wait a minute, what's this? And I said, roll your religion.
Yeah.
Shika, shika, kink. That is probably the finger of Saint Anastasia. And they went, oh, gross. I'm like, well, that's how that works. That's the holy relic. It's a part of her body. Because at least according to legend, every Catholic church has a part of the body of the patron saint for which the church is named in the altar.
Here is the knuckle bone of Saint Cuthbert.
Yes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
That's what my mother taught me. She learned it at Catholic school. Now,
Yeah.
is it true? Arr. But you're welcome aboard. We're talking about homebrewing your games and the fun that goes with it. Our proud one was we kept trying to find ways to change it. So what we had, there were two awesome things that came out of our world we made. The halflings and the elves. The elves couldn't walk on the ground without without having to concentrate because they lived entirely in the trees. And the reason they lived in the trees was because that bit of dark forest that was the elven homeland was overrun with dinosaurs.
Nah.
So it was like nothing but predators below 80 feet.
Right.
So it was one of those where it's like you just didn't go down.
Right.
Because, you die. And except they had tamed like raptors.
Right.
So it was one of those, we had elves who rode raptors. And then we also had I don't know if I mentioned this before, we had Quaker halflings.
Yes, you have mentioned the Quaker halflings.
Yes, the halflings that believe in everything is community property. If you decide to bake a pie, you bake 3. So that when you set them on the windowsill to cool, 2 of them could disappear and it won't bother you.
Right.
And you try not to take, if there's just one, that's just kind of mean to take it. Unless someone says you can, but there's 2. Obviously, they're to share.
Right.
And everything gets ratified at a weekly meeting that everyone is expected to attend. And everything is resolved by community consensus. They were so much fun.
Yeah, we had, what are some of the other homebrew things? Oh, we decided that our planet was a planet, that our world was a planet in a bigger galaxy. And
Good.
There were aliens.
Bad.
That were, so the greatest magic city on the planet is actually built around a crashed spaceship. Okay, so the crashed spaceship is this hub of knowledge, this place of learning, this amazing, temple from the gods, as far as a lot of people are concerned. But it's a wizard school, and it's built on the ship. And when you get to the highest levels of the wizard college, you meet the aliens. And they don't be like, "Hey, we're aliens," It's we're from another world. Oh wow, you're from another world, how amazing. You traveled the phlogiston. No, it's atmosphere and vacuum of space. And anyway, but then we decided throughout, again, we've been running that homeworld for ever and a day. Muddy decided to bring basically lizard men, but kobold-sized lizard men that were like yellow. And the adventure was their spaceship crashed. And this was, again, late 80s, early 90s when we were playing this. And
Good times.
At the table, there were 2 players who were like, spaceship, not in my D&D. And they just, I can't do my dwarf grump because my paw's a little busted, but just, nope, no spaceships in my D&D kind of thing. And there were the other 3 of us players who were like, oh, spaceship, let's do things. And we had an absolute blast, being like 2 halflings and an elven wizard, exploring this crashed spaceship, including, and I'll tell this scene, including the, because Muddy was running and it was great. He's like, the guy pushes a button and a circular disc comes out of the floor, and this, basically a bench folds out. So it becomes this table and this bench. Well, later on, when we were trying to get information out of one of the lizard people, my halfling character tied him to the pole of the table and went over to the button. and the little alien's like, I'll tell you everything, kind of thing. So Again, it was beautiful. Muddy, I love you. It was great to play that, but to have these alien races come and be like, how would that change things in a medieval world where suddenly, you have these aliens, and then it, became a John Carter on Mars, situation, and so it can be. It harkens back to the 70s. Your fantasy can have spaceships and lightsabers, and there's no rules. There's no rules. Just go have fun with it. So, yeah.
Which makes the Star Wars reference just reminds me of that wonderful 8-bit video with the thermal exhaust port engineer being lambasted for the fact that the Death Star could get blown up.
Oh,
where he's out for and space wizards. How am I supposed to engineer around space wizards? You can't engineer around space wizards because they're space wizards. They defy the laws of engineering.
Luke, use the Force. He's turned off his targeting computer. Oh, we're fudged.
But that's again, that's a lot of that fun, that homebrews. You can do things and nobody can cite, oh, but the book says. And that's, I love source books a great deal. I like that I bought the Van Richten's guide. It has a lot of good stuff mechanically, and it has a lot of good commentary, which I really respect a lot more than if it had been 90 pages. Like back in the 90s, you would buy a book, it was 300 pages of lore, maps, NPCs. And now, like, looking for the Van Richten guide, it's like, okay, here's how to design horror on a village scale. Here are things to try and think about. You want to do grand horror. Okay, here are things to think about. Here are some samples over like 50 pages.
Right.
Which I think is so much richer and easier.
Yeah, instead of being a hammer that they bludgeon you with this book, it's a set of sculpting tools. It's clay. They give you clay and a wheel to spin and create these beautiful vases with, rather than go, this is how you do it. Instead of a Bible, they give you a crafts guide.
Yes. And that's, and on the one hand, I appreciate the Bible, but I'm glad to see that those things are starting to fade, and things like looking at the newer wave of things, even the new adventures, they start with, okay, if you're in this world, here's some ways you can make this fit what you're doing. If you're in this world, here's an easy place to put this. So that, it becomes the modules themselves are relatively world agnostic.
Yeah.
You can put them anywhere that would be fun for whatever homebrew game you're running, and it all kind of just works. Even Dragon Heist, Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I've only ever run the first chapter,
right?
Because that alone can take 4 sessions, and the second chapter could take like 6 months, as you saw. But like, aside from the fact that some players recognize some of the names and go, "Oh, the Harpers, they're serious." Okay,
yeah.
You could theoretically run that in any large city, right? Like, nothing breaks.
Yeah,
really.
It is in Lankmar. It is in something in Conan. You could put in multiple worlds.
You could run it in Metropolis.
Yeah.
Let's be legit. The Yawning Portal becomes like literally some crazy portal that extends into a different dimension that would be superheroes queue up to go down.
Right. Yeah, it's the TVA portal
Yeah.
has just stuck there. Yeah, we built a bar around it, whatever.
And Emily, welcome to the family. We're glad to have you as a follower of the stream. We are in the
Woo.
middle of our podcast recordings, but if you are hearing this as a podcast, you want to hop over to twitch.tv/Emily Falkreath. It's spelled exactly like the Skyrim. She's an amazing content creator from England, I think. If that she sounds like she is. And she does a lot of great stuff. She's a big Skyrim nerd. She was playing Skyrim VR. I rated her earlier today when I
Nice.
finished up my mid-afternoon stream because summer's almost over. And it's neat to have her popping over here to say hi. But yeah, so we're talking this stuff. But you could totally do it. And the storyline works.
Yeah.
It needs a little bit more massaging than a fantasy RPG would, but you can do it. And I've even done that. I don't know, you played some Shadowrun. Did you ever play Harlequin?
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Harlequin was a collection of Shadowruns
Yeah.
that were never intended to be run back to back to back
Yeah.
because together they told an overarching story. But the intention was you were supposed to kind of forget about them as you went through them.
Okay.
So it was one of those where it's like at the end of a year of playing and you've done like a dozen Shadowruns, you're like, wait a minute, every time we got a job from a guy that was asking us to do the thing, that was part of this story arc? Whoa. and the shtick of it doesn't need fantasy. It's still the same. Okay, you're collecting artifacts for this bigger plan on behalf of this one person who wants to be anonymous. Well, that'll work in any kind of a universe.
Yeah.
You can totally make that work. And it's fun to take those adventures and homebrew them, I guess, into whatever world you're in. It goes back to when we talk about being creative and inspiration for it.
Yeah, and so part of the reason that we introduced the aliens to our home world was because we were playing a different campaign about aliens and stuff, and we had written a board game, kind of a miniatures conquer space type game, and we wanted to do some more spaceshipy good stuff like that with role play. And Muddy was running a game that they had called Beta Force, and then we took over and played a few sessions of it, and it just, and so we really wanted to have, and BattleTech had come onto the scene, and so we just wanted to have more. We were like in the mood, and so we introduced it, and there it was. It became part of our lore and our world. The other thing I think too is going that's all big world buildy homebrew stuff. You can go teeny tiny. I love to make little minute magic items. It's one of my favorite things to do. When 5e came out, I was really missing in and I can't remember if I brought this up before, but in 3 and 3.5 skills, and there were points, you could do everything. You could have a hat that was a +2 hat of persuasion. You could have a great club that was the great club +3 intimidation. It might have only been a +1 club in battle, but if you had the club and you were intimidating someone, you got +3.
Is that related at all to the same maker as the one that created the knee pads of persuasion?
Yeah, exactly. Straight from oh my God, what's that called?
Munchkin.
Yeah.
Munchkin.
Yeah. So, and I really missed that a lot. And so when 5 came out with bounded accuracy, it's really hard to make stuff like that. So I was really kind of missing the ability to do that, but they did a great bit in the DMG where there's these little detail charts for magic items. And so when I started running a campaign in my home world of D&D, every magic item I gave out, I rolled up on those charts, and I gave them those little details. And through just those little details and stuff, it pings the little not parcheesi, what's it called, where the little balls fall through the things, anyway, it pinballs up in your skull and hits little ideas. And so like I came up with, there's a box, it's a little tin box, and it's got like sheep and stuff on it, but it's full of buttons, and each button in there that gets put in the box eventually becomes a mending spell. You could take the button and use it like the mending cantrip. So
nice.
You pull a button out of it, you put a chain link together, you touch a button to it, and it, after a minute it grows back together. Just those minute little homebrew things that become so integrated and fun to your the +9 ogre slaying knife.
I remember that one. That was a thing.
I'm by the tavern. I'm getting drunk. Yes.
It's pretty slick.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, don't bind yourself to any rule book or whatever. That's what's fun about it. There are times where people have gone, wait a minute, that's not how this works, and I have gone and I have gone, oh yeah, that's strange, isn't it, that it doesn't work that way. I've for years now I've wanted to write a story, and the story begins with, all was fine at the magic school until one day a magic missile missed. And that's how I want the story to begin. And that's it, it's just,
wow, that's heavy.
That's what I'm saying.
That's really heavy.
The little things, that's homebrew. That's what gives you that craziness.
Well, and the biggest thing too is, and I encourage this because I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in what the books tell you should be happening versus what the players think will be fun to happen. Case in point, Azteki reminded me of this when he popped in. Sunday, in the Curse of Strahd game, they came across a Mace of Terror as a random magic item lying around the castle, because the good news is, while everything can kill you, it's already killed a lot of people just as qualified as you, and all of their stuff is still there.
Right.
So they found this Mace of Terror, and Azteki was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I'd rather it be a flail because that's like my style, but I guess I'll take a mace because I'm the only one who doesn't have a magic weapon right now. And I went, okay. You pick it up and you watch as the head falls on a length of chain. It's a flail. You were wrong the first time. And I did that. No, it's not needy. It's like, well, and again, when mild spoiler for those that are playing through a Curse of Strahd campaign, there's the weapon called the Sunblade or the Sun Sword, and it's the fantasy lightsaber. And again, this was written back in the early 80s. So Hickman and Hickman were like, oh, we could put in like a lightsaber kind of weapon. That would be really cool. And now, 30 years later, it's kind of cool. But then
Why'd they put a lightsaber in D&D?
Yeah, it's like, okay, yeah. So I made it where it was just a shaft, like a handle. And whoever the owner was, it would morph into their weapon. Yeah. Which is how our ranger has a bow made of sunlight.
Well, and that was the thing too, that from earlier editions that was so, that it's just kind of, people sweep it under the rug. for instance, I'm going to tell the story in reverse order. So we're playing, what's the one with all the giants? It's one of the first ones that came out for your 5e. No, not Against the Giants. Anyway,
okay.
You fight giants. Well, one of the first giants we kill has like this golden breastplate on, and we slay him and he falls, and my greedy pirate barbarian dwarf is like, I'm gonna make a sled out of this piece of gold. It's gonna be a giant golden sled that I will drive home, and then I will melt, and I will be rich, rich, rich. So he cuts the straps and gets the breastplate off, the golden breastplate off, and when it comes away from the giant, the DM goes, "Oh, it shrinks down to your size." Damn it! He throws the golden thing on the floor, and so in 5e they were like, oh look, magical armor and stuff. It takes the form of the new owner, you know.
Well, again, you think back to the old days. That was like there was a mechanic for it. What was the probability that that armor fit you? So you'd go, oh look, I found new armor. Shika 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 boom. It doesn't fit.
Yeah, it's for halflings. God damn it. Arr!
Well, and I remember when 4th came out. Was 4th or was it 3rd that you wrote wish lists?
Ooh, must have been 4th.
I think the 4th had the DM's guide where it recommended players create wish lists of things they wanted for their character. And the idea was the DM would then, collect all the index cards at the end of session 0 and kind of file them away and go, okay, I've got these treasure. I think 4th had treasure parcels that you were supposed to give out periodically. So at the end of every encounter, there was a treasure parcel, and over the course of a level, you would give out like 5 treasure parcels, and it like told you that should have this many weapons, this much magic items, this much money.
That was 4th.
All of these things, and you were supposed to then seed the wish list items into those treasure parcels, so that your paladin of Ravenkind go, oh, check it out, I got a cool +1 flail. Just what I wanted, sweet. And the internet lost its mind. Dave, welcome aboard. We appreciate you here, and thank you so much for your ongoing support for the stream. Woo. You are a kind, generous, and wise individual. If your students are not giving you a 5 out of 5 on ratemyteachers.com, that makes sense. Nobody uses it anymore. But if they did, if they still did use that website, they better be.
Give me a kabong.
We have a bong. Oh, that didn't come through. Do it again.
Oh, didn't come through.
No, the first one sounded better, but we're going to keep it.
All right, okay.
We're going to keep it.
Woo!
So, but yeah, it's interesting too, watching that reaction, because I think 4th edition really did start to say, hey, let's get all the players and the DM on the same page to say, we're looking to have some kind of positive outcome, and we want everyone to have a good time as part of the game. Let's do it.
Yeah, because 3, I think 3 and 3.5, they learned their lesson. They tried to fix the complaints from 1 and 2, where it was, that adversarial DMing that we talk about so often. Where they would butt heads, and it was, I'm gonna get you and your little dog too, DMing, and it finally, in 3, they tried to fix it by having a rule for everything. Everything had a rule. 8 pages to do grappling is the big example. 90 pages of the player's handbook were combat rules. There was a rule for everything, and
digitization. Let's not undersell that enough.
And then so now, as the editions have gone on, they're trying to get away from the it's not a board game. We're not playing chess. It's not DM versus players here. It's we are playing a game together where it's community storytelling. You know, I come up with situations. I should be a fan of you, the players, and you players are a fan of me writing a story for us. Um,
Which is some of the most fun when you put these worlds together and your players take ownership of them and start to say, okay, I want to be part of that storytelling. And it's fun because, like, Tiffany, who's in my Candlekeep game, will say things like, well, what do you think? Do you think maybe, like, Show's family might have, some of her siblings, adopted siblings, might live in such and such a place? And I'm like, you don't need to ask me. Just do it. Just say it happened.
Yeah.
I don't know where Candlekeep is. It's a castle library on a continent somewhere, and there's somewhere near it is a little village called Branch, because it's where the river branches.
Right.
So it's nestled at the branch in the river, and it has a little library that you grew up at. Combat system was easier, gave him more storytelling using percentages instead of hard numbers. Yeah, if that works for him to process, that totally makes sense. I actually find myself, when I'm playing like Solasta and talking through everything, I just turn every +1 into a 5% for conversation's sake. So it's like, oh, I can slap that on there. It'll take my AC up by 2. So that's an extra 10% defense, because that's D20. Every number represents a 5% probability.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about divided by 20 is, I missed. Oh, no, I did not. I need to start checking my email for work, because apparently things are getting hot. Well, I report next Monday, so I'm a little overdue to get back in the loop about what's going on, when and where. So I'm gonna have to call my department chair here after the stream. But that's a really interesting world to have gotten there, and the idea of people have arrived from the real world. I've heard that a couple of times. That can make for some really fun games.
Yeah.
There was one in college that a friend of mine was in, with the everyone like described their morning in an email.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to you between these hours today? And then the DM at their first session showed up with their character sheets and said, okay, here's your character. You're standing in the middle of a town square, and according to you, you're in your socks, nightgown, and you're holding a frying pan. And like someone else showed up with like all of their textbooks because they had an 8 a.m. class.
Right.
Another one had their bike because they were traveling between classes.
Yeah.
And then that's where the game started. Was they had to figure out what their class was. They had to figure out what they were gonna, what the adventure was. But they were starting from nothing.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of fun. We did not get any emails this week, but we did get an interesting hot take off Twitter for our email segment today. If we're ready to segue into that.
All right.
Okay. So, I have to come back to that later. Okay, that's a different conversation. Okay, so the tweet was, players hate running away. Dungeon Masters, if you create an encounter that relies on the party fleeing an enemy whose power vastly outranks them, be prepared for them to stand their ground. And his follow-up to this is, it just never works out. People get upset, they get sad, you end up with a total party wipe. They always feel incredibly, cheated. So I guess the question is, can you create an encounter where the PCs are supposed to run, like go, okay, we can't do this. How do you do it? If the story really kind of requires that we're not ready to defeat this evil, we must quest for MacGuffins.
Yeah.
Can you do it in a way that the players know it's time to cash in the better part of valor?
So taking according to our a couple chats ago and a Wizardly Wondering Wednesdays that I did on Twitter, people like skill challenges. They really, that was the winner of my poll. My Wondering Wednesday was skill challenges is something they should have brought from fourth. And almost everybody I know now who's running fifth edition does skill challenges.
And for those of us not familiar, skill challenge means
It means that there is a set DC and a set number of successes or failures to succeed this skill challenge. So that is a good way to explain to players, okay, guys, you cannot defeat the ancient red dragon your second level. We're going to do a skill challenge to escape the cavern of the red dragon. Okay, let's do our skill challenge. Who's up first? Or roll initiative. Okay, what skill do you use? And that's a good way to, set them up so that they know this is a Kobayashi Maru. You cannot win this. This is a scenario where you have to escape, or you have to, do something. And you can define at the beginning, if you succeed the dragon, you escape the dragon. If you fail, the dragon thinks you're dead and flies off to eat some other village, and you will come back when you're 8 levels higher and get your revenge, kind of thing. That's a good way, I think, to set that up. The other thing, like I said, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll pick a character who either has a really high intelligence or a really high wisdom, and I'll say roll either a save or a thing, or I'll just hand them a note. You've done to the wizard, you've done the math. You cannot win this fight.
Yes.
And I give them the note, or I send them the whisper or whatever. And then it's up to them to role play and go, guys, we can't. Do you know what that thing can? It's a beholder. It can disintegrate.
We've only been adventuring for 3 months.
Yeah, we need to get the hell out of here.
I only know 2nd tier spells.
Exactly.
Van Guilty is suggesting an escape hatch situation.
Ooh.
Either role play it or hint at it, use the traps in the dungeon against the monsters, or still an escape hatch.
Right.
You just have to figure out how to get out of this. But I think in both of those conceits, both yours and Van Guilty's, both rely on clear communication with the players.
Yeah.
If you do this, this will happen.
Yes.
And a little bit of a, hey guys, I got to level with you for the story to work. You can't win this fight.
Right.
It's not going to happen. Your goal, your win condition is blank.
Yeah.
Rescue X villagers before you flee.
Yeah.
Rescue, get from point A to point B before the whole party goes down.
Yeah.
Get the jewel to the edge of the volcano. Some of you might die on the way, but standing to fight against the orc horde coming up the side of the volcano, I can tell you, won't work.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you as a DM, you're not gonna be able to hold the line here and just fight them off until they're all dead and then go dunk the gem. No, that's not what I'm going for here.
Yeah.
Now sometimes you have to beat people because they don't take hints. they can pull a Kaylee on you. Because Sunday, my teen was having a birthday get together with his friend from dance. The two of them, he missed her party, and they said, let's get Menchie's. And so the 9-year-old and the teen and the friend all sat down to eat their Menchie's together. And I said, okay, Kaylee, why don't you come sit with us adults and tell us what was fun about dance today? And the 9-year-old looks at me and looks at the two teens and looks at me and goes, no, I'm going to stay right here. And I said, okay. No, come. And then I looked at the teens and I went, well, maybe we really want to hear what you thought about dance. And these two really want to talk about what they had fun with at dance on their own. And I'm like, okay, this is your window. You can kick her out now. And they didn't take it. which maybe they missed that it was the window, or they legit just didn't care that 9-year-old was hanging out with them. Some of you might die. It sounds very nature show. Only 30% survive their first year of life. Well, I did that too with the in the Candlekeep game. I killed off half the party.
Yeah.
And I did it in a, okay, you have a choice. You either run or you stay and die. You need to pick.
Right.
What do you want to do?
Yeah.
And half the party, 2 of the 4, went, I'm going to stay and fight. I don't care if I die.
Yeah.
And the other 2 were like, I'm getting out of Dodge because I don't want to die. I'm not ready. Well, one of them was, I'm not convinced this is a fight to die in. And the other was, I can't leave you. And the one that went back was like, I'm convinced this is a fight. We have to fight. And the one that went with her went, where she goes, I go. I'm not going to let her fight to the death alone.
Yeah.
It was a real, like, there's a part where it's like, I still get goosebumps thinking about that scene.
Yeah, dude. It's all like teary-eye, man. You're like, oh.
Oh, no, you're ready for the teary eye? As we're describing the final death, Jensen's father, who's fighting at their side, turns and goes, I want you to know, I'm proud you came back. And then he gets cut down.
X's on his eyes.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. It was good. The other keeper, this is also how I knew I had arrived with that campaign, and then we'll get back to teaching players to run away, is when I set them up to go on a quest to get rid of Jansen's demons. And Jess playing as Mir goes, wait a minute. Are we really going to go into a hell dimension to save them from their demons, remembering that their demons have gotten all of us into a lot of trouble?
Yeah.
Like, are we really, really risking our lives and going into a hell dimension for her? And the fact that that even happened as a conversation, I'm like, yes. Yes. You're doubting if you all have to go along with the plot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the thing, is I think things like unwinnable fights, I don't know, is there any way you can hint at it without, I mean, because the points raised on Twitter, I think, are valid. Players expect to win fights.
Yeah.
Lenarius has the philosophy for every time, whenever she's streaming, she'll always get to a fight and say, if I can get to it, I can beat it. I should never have to go back to a save game and say, okay, I guess we have to go back to the game I saved this morning and grind a while. She's like, if I'm here, I should be able to get through it.
Yeah. Ooh, I don't know.
Should we hint at it? That's a great question from chat.
Yeah, thanks, Ear. I think that I used to one of my players who was very on the spot, he would be like, wait, did you hear the way he said that? Are you sure you want to do this? Or be clear, because your imagination is not the player's imagination. And so, you may say, it's a 12-foot jump, blah, 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 and describe the thing. And they might be seeing something completely different, in their mind's eye. And so, you might say then, if they go, oh, I'll just jump it. And you're like, okay, I'm going to lay out the expectations. This is going to be very hard. It's a 12-foot jump, but the disc is covered in slime, and the pit is full of green slime, which will dissolve all your bones in, flesh and bones in like seconds.
Also, in a 3-second Google search,
the
world record for the long jump is 8.95. Now, I think that's in meters, though.
Oh, I was going to say, because that's not what D&D tells me.
Meters, 29 feet.
All right.
So that's an Olympic athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
At the furthest.
Yeah.
Is 30 feet.
I like what Van Guilty says is, rather than saying you can't win this, is vastly overpowered. And you could heavily hint or like I said, if they're not getting it and they're like, well, then shing, I'll drink this potion. And you go, okay, this is going to be your last stand. It's, sometimes you just got to get out the bam hammer and tonk, right in the forehead. Like, okay, no, I know in a video game design, there has to be a way to win, but this is a story. And there doesn't have to be a way to win.
It occurs to me, if you're writing a game where you're going to have these scenarios, like because let's be honest, there are two ways you run D&D. You run D&D in the form of, let's just get together and wander the sandbox. Mm-hmm. Or you run D&D, and it's like you have the outline in your head. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, if in your outline in your head that you've got, the whole story arc planned, you see this runaway moment, then from the first combat encounter, the first time you say roll for initiative, you also say your win condition is. Mm. And for the first 20 encounters, the win condition is kill all of the enemies. Mm. You win this encounter when you have killed or subdued all the enemy monsters. You win this encounter when you kill half of them, because half will run away.
Yeah.
Or, so that way, now I wouldn't normally do this in a game, but if I know I'm going to have a runaway moment that's important they run away, now it's normal. It's part of my routine for running combat. Roll for initiative, wait till I call on you to call out your number. Please, players, wait until the DM asks before you shout your number. Otherwise, you're going to shout it 3 times. And the first one is the only, nobody cares otherwise. Anyway, then I want to say, roll for initiative. Tell me what it is. Your win condition is escape. And now they're all like, oh, wait a minute. It's not kill everybody? No. It's not kill half of them? No. It's escape. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I tend to agree. If you don't, it works so well in that. Well, okay, so if you're thinking about what happened with Shona and Jansen, Lenarius and Tiffany's characters, there were 2 things that worked there. They trusted me explicitly not to have the game end on a bad note. And we had talked off stream where I had said, tonight's going to be heavy. I need you to trust me. It will not end on a bad note. And everyone looked back at me on Zoom and went, okay. And it was one where there were no dice. When they went down, it was all narrated.
Right.
Because they were going to go down. That was it. And I also tend to think for big cinematic, this is happening, there's nothing you can do. If I know there's nothing the players can do about it, I'm not going to make them roll dice. Because that creates the illusion of opportunity, and I think that's worse than not giving it.
Yeah.
I'm a much bigger fan of look, I don't, it's boxed text. You come
choose your own adventure.
Yeah, you come out of the woods and are immediately seized by the orcs and dragged into their village. Well, I wanted to fight. Nope, the box text said you were seized. See, it says right here in the book. See, it's boxed text. I had to read it. Sorry.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, those old adventures had lots of you get captured, you get screamed at, you get chased out of town in the box text you read, and the adventure required it to happen or it couldn't go on.
You wake up in the prison cell, chained to the wall, Yeah. It's how the adventure begins.
Yeah. But that's the kind of thing too, where it's all about your players and getting to know them and knowing their expectations and communicating with them, because it's so, especially when you play with strangers, like a pickup game off of, say, Demaplane. Yep. You don't know who you're playing with. You don't know what baggage they're bringing to the game. You don't know you don't always know their expectations. So
here's a good one. Dr. Gear and I were playing Harnmaster, and he was a witch hunter type character, and this winter spirit witch came and he sliced it with his sword, and his sword went straight through it. And he was like, well, this is BS, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, it's a cold water winter witch spirit. In your other hand, you're holding a torch. I swipe it with my sword. Your sword goes straight through it. And he got so frustrated, he didn't want to play anymore. He was like, this is ridiculous. I'm a witch hunter. I can't do anything. And I'm like, no, you're just so used to playing, D&D or whatever, that this is the situation. It's a different game. You have to think outside the box on this. There was a time where my party, they came across a werewolf at first level, and they were like, oh no, none of our weapons hurt it. And I'm like, no, what do you do? And they were like, protect the wizard at all costs. Let the werewolf maul our bodies while the wizard just keeps can dripping it until they finally beat it down. And I'm like, that was indeed one way to do that. You could have all run to the cabin and then, oh look, silver cutlery in the drawer, or whatever. So yes, sometimes it doesn't work out. You just have to, like I said, take the bam hammer, thump them in the head, and say, guys, it's part of the story.
It'll work.
Work with me here.
It'll work. Trust. Oh, and again, to bring this full, back to where we started, when I killed the character Sunday night in Ravenloft, there were no but I need. It was okay. Rob's got this. We're gonna get the game is going to still be fun. I trust him, and that's curated over time.
Yes,
that comes from either playing with someone that has a good rep, or having developed a good rapport. Speaking of rapport, what have you got coming up? That's a terrible segue, but what's coming up this week in the tavern? What can we look forward to?
Thursday, we'll be over at Indoor Adventure running our Monster Noir game. I think it's episode 5 or 6 out of 10. Our amazing unaware wolf, Dot, is going to find her dad and stuff. So it should be cool. We're in the middle of battling I can't say yet. There's a lot of undead. That's what I'm going to say right now. But that's 8:30 Eastern Standard Time on Indoor Adventures channel. And then I'll be back on Sunday morning for some more Wilder Myth. And it's the BBEG for the first story. So if you've never seen the game, it's a big epic battle to jump right in and with to view. So stop by 10 Eastern or 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10-ish. I
hear that sometimes the official time and place can vary greatly person to person, as it were. I've got Valley of Plenty is running tomorrow night, as far as I know. So we're back at it. They get to find out what happens when you eat enchanted bread that continually replenishes itself on the shelf. Which I'm so geeked because I'm geeked for what I've added to that game. And then Friday is as close as I'm going to get to celebrate it in a way I want to celebrate it, my 1-year anniversary of making Twitch affiliate, which I'm also coupling with a end of summer blowout, which I'm coupling with massive giveaways and subathon. So I even have a little table of every so many subs, every so many follows, every so many cheers, we run a giveaway. I've got the lock tools giveaway ready to run. Nice. And it all goes with the fact that at noon on Friday, the Kickstarter for the Convergence live stream game will go live. And so it's an opportunity to get in there. I'm working with, I tweeted out today, I mentioned at the top of the stream, I've got a commissioned artist that is currently slated to do the commission work. And we've got some overlays we're looking at. We're looking at a theme song. It's an opportunity to kind of thank the players for the time that they invest. My Candlekeep game, for example, at least one of them shows up in cosplay every time we get together. So I mean, it's I'd like a chance to thank them and share some of the joys of this. So I'm really hoping for a good run of that, because I know Patreon's the one everyone uses, and I like my budgets at the start of the project. You know, I like to spend out of an account rather than just hope the account grows.
Right.
So anything that would be like a Patreon reward is going to get tied to the Kickstarter, and I'm going to see how that goes. You know, maybe I can get a few more people on board when I say, hey, I'll do a weekly DM journal if we hit this stretch goal. So it's not just, I pay because I want to read. It's like, we hit the goal. I got the thing.
Right.
If it gets high enough, I may even I will write up an official, like, here's the PDF. You can run it yourself. Document. The only catch is it will not have maps. I don't do maps. That's not a thing. I don't do maps. I have no intent. I want to write up Valley of Plenty as a campaign to put up like in a merch store. And I'm like, it won't have maps though. I don't do maps. You'll have to figure out where everything is.
That'll be the extreme stretch goal. Hire someone to make maps.
Nope. I will die on the hill of you do not get maps.
All right.
Because I firmly believe the games are better when they're not provided. Exception, Ravenloft. Because that castle is freaking well designed.
It's amazing.
And I think that's why I won't do maps. I can't design a castle that good. Yes, I realize this is like saying I will never play like Eric Clapton, so I'm not going to pick up a guitar.
Right.
However,
I'll never be Matt Mercer, so I'm not going to DM anymore.
Are you kidding? I got that guy beat hands down 9 Ways from Sunday.
There it is.
Talking about never Matt Mercer. Remember, send all of your angry emails to @GraybeardTavern on Twitter.
Exactly. Yep.
Or @Lantern Noir. I'll take them. It'll be fun. You can also send your emails with feedback to oldtimertavern@gmail.com. When you're out roving the internets, also stop by sweetsteam.com, sponsors of the podcast and stream. They make artisan chocolates in a steampunk theme. Sweet Steam. And the one, I think I may have held this up before in a week, but for example, I have in front of me a Butterbeard, the Fizzy Wizard, effervescent butterscotch.
I love me some butterscotch.
I know, and they've got the best stuff. So check them out. Thank you for downloading. Please consider leaving us a review wherever you downloaded us from, because we would love for more people on that platform to find us. So if it's Overcast, if it's Apple Podcasts, if it's Spotify, wherever it was, just let us know where you found us so we can keep making great content for you and for all the other D&D fans, young, old, and refusing to answer. Party and thought for the podcast, people, my friend?
The sky's the limit. It's your world. Do what you want to do.
Amen to that. Thank you. And wherever you are, try to stay safe. Okay, now, those of us hanging out here on the stream, where are we going to send you from here? There's different people I've rated in the past coming out of here. So trying to pick the one for today. I think we're going to raid into Kraken Inferno. He looks like he's having a good time with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You might not be here because you're a big Valhalla fan. That doesn't matter. He hardly ever plays the game anyways. But he is an amazing content creator, a lot of fun, a great conversation. He remembered the one time I mentioned in chat that I was thinking about rebranding from Lantern Noir to Rob Noir. And the next time I came in, he's like, oh yeah, it's Lantern Noir. Or is it Rob Noir? Have you rebranded yet? Because that's the kind of dude he is. He's that on top of things. Just mad respect for him. Did I set this up? Did I change this? I did not. Okay, back to that while we wait for the raid to time down. I was trying to set up a better like we're heading out screen with the credits running on it, but I did
Ah.
not do that. So, but thank you for coming by. Hopefully, I will see you for some of tomorrow. I'm taking my kid to get his shoes fit in the afternoon, and then tomorrow night, Valley of Plenty's back. And then again, the Kickstarter goes off at noon. So thank you
Nice.
for coming. We're going to let the timer run down, and you guys stay safe too, all right?
Mhm.